Welcome to Women vs. Everything, a podcast where we talk about badass women in history. This is season 1, episode 7, and we are doing an April Fool's Day special, talking about women and femininity in the history of fools, tricksters, pranks, and cons.
Yes. So that was Grace. I'm Jess, and this is our first special episode, which is very, very exciting. We are aware that this is late. We are recording this on the 3rd of April because time does not exist anymore. But that's fine. It's vaguely thematically appropriate. So just go with it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I think maybe by next year we'll have figured out how to do timing that this is actually released the week of April Fool's Day.
Yes, exactly.
But this is not that year. Yeah, we've done a Japanese person on St. Patrick's Day, and now we're doing April Fool's Day in the middle of April.
I mean, we could do our Christmas special next week. It'd be great.
Listen, time was invented by the patriarchy.
I want that on a t-shirt.
Therefore, I do not abide by its laws.
I'm not always late, I'm just smashing the patriarchy.
Exactly.
I love it.
How have you been?
Yeah, okay, actually. Good. Yeah. Just, working, still living the lockdown life. But I got to see my parents this week, which was lovely.
Oh.
Yeah, for the first time since before Christmas, so that was really nice. My partner is vaccinated now as of last week. Yay.
Yay.
First one, clearly not second one, but still, yay. Yeah, how are you? How are things?
I'm good. I had a bit of a down day during the week where I couldn't stop crying, and I think it was just like the 1 year anniversary of all of this really hit me. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I just miss Oxford so much, I miss the UK so much, I miss my friends so much, and I booked to go back to the UK for the whole month of August.
Yay! That's exciting! Ah!
I know, I'm so excited, so I'd really like to liaise with you tomorrow about coming to visit you or us meeting halfway or something.
Yes, 100%. Where are you staying? You're staying in Oxford?
No, I'm going to fly in and out of London, cool. But I'm going to kind of try and do a few days, sometime in London, sometime maybe Brighton, Margate area, and then head Oxford, Bristol, and I should have signed up to fly out of Bristol. That wasn't very smart of me, but yeah, here we are.
Well, that sounds lovely. And either you should come and see us and stay with us for a bit, or we can meet somewhere halfway or something. But yes, definitely. I would love to see you and just hang out and also possibly record when we're in the same room.
I know, right?
We could have a Women versus Everything on tour special.
Oh, we should probably check out if there is any festivals or podcast festivals or anything going on that we could chuck in while we're there.
There might be. That would be really cool. Yeah, definitely. We should look into this.
Yeah, because there is some stuff happening. There's some hippie festivals and stuff happening in the UK in the summer, but Ireland isn't anywhere near that yet, really.
Yeah, I've seen that some of the kind of big festivals have announced that they're going ahead this year. I hope they actually can. I hope they're not being overly optimistic.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of festival, but some of them I'm like, okay, I can see how you could do that socially distanced,
I saw one the other day, and I can't remember what the event was called now, but it was like a 40,000 person music festival that's saying it's going to go ahead this July, and I was thinking, really?
What?
Really? I'm not sure I'm buying that, but okay, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I saw a totally different type of festival is going ahead. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that, because I think there's a lot of tantra and sex and relationship inspired workshops at that, but
So quite hard to do socially distanced, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, there's still, I think the whole thing with sex and relationships and stuff like that is that your relationship with yourself is your primary relationship, and how you treat yourself is the kind of expectation for how others treat you. So it's maybe it would be really nice actually to do a very insular festival, and I think the temptation would be to jump out and be really impulsive after all this like time alone, and maybe it would be good to do something that is about slowing down and connecting with yourself, you know.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
And also, I'm just like, the other side of that is whenever I hear about someone who's been vaccinated, I'm like, just spit in my mouth. Let's see if it works or not. Come on.
Well then.
Exactly. I'm that desperate for attention anyway, so.
Oh God. What has this last year done to us?
I was working on this comedy routine just like when I thought lockdown was only going to last a few months. And one of the lines from that is, "Lockdown has made me so lonely, I even miss my ex with an eyeball licking fetish."
Eyeballs.
Yeah. So anyway.
Anyhow, yeah.
That's what's going on in my life. I might not be left into the country by the time it's my time to come over. No.
We listen to your podcast and no.
Yeah, we've heard about this eyeball licking, mouth spitting tour, and frankly...
I just learned that my favourite cafe is opening for outside table service as of the 12th of April. So I'm going to go and sit outside and drink a coffee that I didn't have to make, and it's going to be amazing.
Yes! Do you want to give them a shout out?
Yes! Shout out to More Coffee Co. in Melton Mowbray. We love you.
Yeah. Just expect a reserved table when you open now.
I need my little writing corner, yes.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, I had my first ice cream and iced latte the other day.
Oh, very nice.
Spring.
What flavour of ice cream?
We call them a 99, like just the like ice cream cone with a flake in it.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, I love those things. Yes.
Yes, it was so delicious.
So good, so good.
Yeah. Oh, I've watched, based on your recommendation, I've been watching. It was one you mentioned the last time we recorded.
Oh, I mentioned several things.
You have so many hobbies. The bold type.
Oh, yes, what do you think?
I love it.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bubblegum and I could poke holes in it, but also it's quite good.
It's ridiculous, and like when I watch it, you know, watching it as a journalist, I'm torn between I love this is amazing, and journalism does not work in that way. But I want Jacqueline to be my boss.
She's so lovely.
She's the best.
God.
Yeah.
So
How far have you got? How far have you got through?
I'm only like 3 episodes in.
Okay. It gets better, and season 3 is the best, and then it kind of goes a little downhill in season 4.
Okay. Thanks for the heads up.
So yeah, I look forward to hearing more about what you think.
Yeah, I love so many things about it. I love, the main character's body. Like, she's just not waif-like. You know, it is by no means diversity in body size, but it's just like, oh my God, those are attainable arms, and I can still, you know, have an ice cream sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And, she's just gorgeous, and I love the lack of men in it. Except as, like, the romantic characters or side characters. That's very fun. Mm-hmm. That's refreshing. I love the, like, supportive boss lifting other women up. I love... One character's got a bit of sexual fluidity going on that I quite enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't like the hustle vibe.
No. That's a whole thing.
Glorified hustle in journalism. And I'm also like, it's stayed away from how toxic those work environments actually are. So, like...
Yes.
Yeah,
that gets explored a little bit later, but never really in any real depth.
Yeah, I would have gone deeper and darker with that.
Yeah.
And, with all my qualifications to make Netflix series. And,
We should make oh my god, if Netflix want to hire us to make a women's history special, we are so available.
Yes. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, and they have a storyline about women who don't feel particularly sexual or sex positive and therefore feel a lot of pressure and like are having a negative experience of the sex positive movement, which is really important. I think that's great.
Yeah, it covers a lot of stuff, actually. It's for a fluff show, it covers a lot of actually interesting issues, which I like.
Mm-hmm. And the yoni egg.
Oh god, that was hilarious. Let's not give too much away to the listeners. If you want to see what we're talking about, go and watch it. It's on Netflix.
Yeah. So they give a really negative depiction of like a trip to the sexologist's office. And I just want to say I can recommend some other sexologists instead who will not be awful like that was. I think one of my favorites is Sue Sutherland, and they're really informed. They've done all the necessary qualifications to work with the body and to work as a sex and relationships coach, and they're really lovely and very exciting.
So we will pop a link to their stuff in the show notes.
Yeah. So don't let media representations of what like therapy and stuff like that is turn you off actually trying it.
Much like media depictions of journalism, media depictions of therapy are not necessarily accurate.
I mean, if it wasn't for media depictions of how great it is running a podcast, we wouldn't be in this mess.
There actually is a storyline way later on in the Bold Type where one of the characters starts a podcast. In fact, two of the characters start 2 podcasts.
Oh, and actually, one thing I also love is the soundtrack. The soundtrack's so good. I was playing it in the shower.
Right, the whole soundtrack is on Spotify, and I very often just have it as my background writing music and or driving music when I'm in my car.
Oh, exciting! Oh, yeah. I can't write with music on.
No?
Unless it's classical. Yeah.
I prefer to have music on, but it has to be the right music. Which is usually kind of either instrumental stuff or like just kind of upbeat poppy sort of stuff. One of my things that anyone who's met me will know is that I am a massive musical theatre geek. But I can't listen to musical theatre when I'm writing because I will just sing along and then will get horribly distracted and not write anything.
So yeah, some people can concentrate on their work and do listen to podcasts at the same time, and I'm just like, they're the devil.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. So it must be evil.
So tell us, are you listening to us while you are working? And if so, how? Teach us your secrets.
And if so, God help you.
We're sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Punch your boss. Let's put subliminal messages into the episode for people who are at work. Punch your boss. Do you want to play, so like my cousin heads up a remote team of scientists and they play pants roulette on video chat. So
I have questions.
Like, at various times, they'll just say someone's name and they have to stand up to prove if they're wearing trousers or not, basically.
Amazing. I am wearing trousers.
Yeah, I was like, we're not on video chat, but we could just describe our amazing lockdown hot as mess outfits to each other.
Oh my god, yes. Do you want to go first?
A Ralph Lauren shirt that a friend found on the side of the road. My cat leggings. You've seen my cat leggings, haven't you?
I have. They are fabulous.
Yeah. And then, just to, like, add some controversy, I've got pink socks with Dalmatians on them. It's quite amazing. I've managed to shower for this, which is pretty amazing, so.
Amazing. That is such a look. I love it.
Such a lockdown look.
Yes. Sutton would be proud of you.
Yes. What about your lockdown fashionista moment? What is it?
So I'm wearing a pair of I don't know if they're really leggings or pajama pants or what they are, but kind of loose fitting sort of trouser things in a very bright mix of tie-dye colours. that I got from, I'm going to shout her out because she's amazing, Lindsay, who is known as the Hippie Dyer. Her website is thehippiedyer.co.uk, and you should check out her stuff and buy from her because she's awesome. And I'm also wearing a kind of faded pinkish oversized t-shirt that I think was from Primark, that says "Be yourself, babe" on the front, which is a sentiment that we can all get behind. And I just freshly dyed my hair the other day, so my hair is very purple right now.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Shall we take some selfies of our lockdown looks and put them on Instagram?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
We will do that. So yes, that is my look for the day.
Sounds delicious.
I'm a hot mess. It's fine.
Good chat.
Yay.
Yay.
So for the format for today's episode, we have both curated a selection of, I guess broadly you could say female con artists, women who have pulled off scams and schemes and tricks and all sorts of things, and we're going to share them as kind of a series of little mini tales.
Yeah, and I've gone a bit subversive to that, so I'm going to talk a bit about the archetype of the fool and the archetype of the trickster and Femme, invisibility, around those archetypes historically, and then some modern interpretations of those archetypes.
Amazing. Do you want to dive straight in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good place to start. Feel free to help me, Jess, because I am not a literary person. So an archetype is a phrase coined by Carl Jung, and it means a shared image going back all the way to myths and legends of old. It spans cultures and generations. So it's like a stereotype, but with more history and shared all across the world, across many cultures. So things that we would look at would be like the athlete, the shaman, the warrior, the king, the queen. A stereotype might be something like, the boss bitch, which is very Western and very modern, and only maybe lasting in the last 40 years or so. Whereas kings and queens have been existing since, the dawn of recorded history and maybe beyond. And it's just like, if I say to lots of people, close your eyes now and imagine a king, we would all have certain symbols and traits that would be shared no matter what culture we're from when we imagine a king. And that's the depth of an archetype, really. Do you want to say anything else about that, Jess?
To be honest, I think that's a really good summary. So I've just pulled up this interesting article on on Jung's 4 major archetypes, which we will link in the show notes as well. But it includes a list of some of the kind of archetypes that Jung described and what they might look like. So the first example is the father, which might be an authority figure, stern, powerful. Then we've got the mother, nurturing, comforting, and so on and so on. And some of the others that we've got listed here are the child, the wise old man, the hero, the maiden, and pertinent to today's episode, the trickster.
Yes. So as much as we've needed those other roles in our lives, the tricksters and the fools go back to day dot. And yeah, because male masculinity is default in our culture, a lot of the ones that could be gender neutral are now interpreted as men. Whereas, we don't know pre-colonialization, there could have been ones, I think it's documented that there were likely ones that were non-binary, that were gender non-conforming, and that were femme. But ones that are women tend to be centered around having a womb and being a mother, being the object of male desire, or in relationship to men, not necessarily standing on their own 2 feet in a role, which I think we still have a problem with in modern media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so take your business elsewhere, patriarchy. Yeah, so the fool is a character in stories or in our lives or a part of ourselves that has no fear, is just full of trust. They're whimsical, they're creative, they're spontaneous, curious, full of wonder and pleasure. And this is very linked to the magical child or the inner child, just wandering around like everything is amazing, and they're very unattached to outcomes. Like the pleasure of the journey is what they're all about. So there's a tarot card of the Fool, and that's usually depicted as a character who is just so distracted by the wonder and the beauty of their surrounds, they don't notice they're about to step off a cliff. And even if they do fall off the cliff, they land on their feet and it's part of the adventure. So it's just like, they're quite lucky. It always works out for them. They provide comic relief by crossing cultural norms, and often they do this by being free to express more of their emotions than is culturally acceptable, and kind of having a naivety that isn't culturally acceptable. And they can seem to lack intelligence or common sense, but sometimes this is in fact masking a willingness to be self-deprecating in order to amuse those around them. Contemporary depictions, again, like with modern media, I found listicles like modern fools, modern tricksters, and like the one about modern fools, only 5 out of 50 were women, which is so upsetting.
Oh wow, that's really skewed. So tell me some of the examples. Who's listed on that?
So we have Dory from Finding Nemo.
Oh, good one. Yes.
Yeah. Melissa McCarthy's character Megan in Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of Lisa Kudrow's characters, like Romeo and Michelle in the high school reunion thing, are there as well. Elle in Legally Blonde.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
Is one I push because she's, it's just that thing where they're a very sweet, innocent disposition and there's not really any maliciousness going on, and they're just like, what's the next fun thing I can do?
Right, absolutely. But I mean, in the case of Elle, at least as a character, that's kind of her superpower.
Yeah, exactly. So by defying the cultural norms, by doing that, they're often a reflection of like, oh, these cultural norms aren't really that useful, are they? Or they're very good at getting us to look at things in a different way. These are some exceptions because usually they're not the main character. Usually they're like someone who is there to, like, as the main character's best friend or something. Yeah. I think an interesting exercise to do is like to think about how we feel about, say, Elle from Legally Blonde versus like Jack Black. And a lot of the characters he plays would be a modern fool from a mask archetype. And I think even when I was researching this, I can't quite put words on it, but I'm like, oh yeah, I do feel a totally different energy to Jack Black than I do a lot of the women on this list I just said. Yeah. And what's that about, and what's that about my biases and what I feel about women who I interpret, I think what I felt is there's a lot, I could give a lot more forgiveness towards the like, the ditzy, not paying attention aspects of the mask fools than I could the femme ones.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And just culturally as well, what does our culture say about those characters? Like, I feel there's a lot more forgiveness around being a man-child. There's even a name for it. And, growing up in the 90s, the dumb blonde was a big thing.
Yes.
And it was very negative, and it was very, Britney Spears and all of that. There was this big thing about, like, you can't be pretty and smart,
Yeah, which is objectively ridiculous.
Yeah, I just think that's a really interesting writing prompt, and I will try and write about it and put it on my blog at some point about, the difference I feel in my internal responses because of cultural bias to mask versus femmes in these categories.
And we will link to that if you write about it.
Yeah.
We also want to hear from listeners who are your favourite fool characters in media. Tell us. I'm sure there's so many that we've missed. So tell us some of yours.
Yeah, and I've found some really great resources that will be in our show notes where you can read more about these things.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And do you want to say anything about response to the femme fool in media or anything like that?
To be honest, I think you've kind of covered it. I think what you said is really true about how we respond differently to female or feminine coded characters. As you said, there's a lot more cultural allowance and cultural forgiveness for men to be kind of silly, childish, playful in those ways, and it's not seen as it's not seen as a bad thing, or it's not seen as detracting fundamentally from their intelligence and competence. Whereas with women, it's a lot more like if they embody those characteristics, they're seen as being not. I guess they're not seen as being just childlike, but they're treated almost as if they are actually children who are incapable of whatever, making good decisions, being competent, any of those sorts of things. I'm not explaining this very well, but you know what I mean.
No, I do, and I feel like the trope around when there's a mask fool, like I'm thinking of a lot of Seth Rogen's films, is there is a frustrated woman running around picking up after him. That trope of it is normal for women to have gender roles around ending up being their partner's mother. Whereas I feel like, you know, Romeo and Michelle, they're hanging out together. Elle is like a superpower. You know, the house bunny is another example. You know, femme friendship was a big thing like that. And like no one ran around after Megan and Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Telling her whatever. She sorted herself out and she had a great time. So I'm noticing that that's different in the movies about these ones.
Absolutely.
A step above that is the wise fool, who is wily and more wily and crafty. So that's where we're getting a bit more intent and direction coming along, where there's like an element of consciousness about how they're behaving. And again, they like rebelling against authority, poking fun at and playing with laws of the universe and testing boundaries. So an example of her would be Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter.
Oh, interesting one. Yes.
Yeah, that there's this kind of helplessness, but things always work out. But there's also a wisdom, and yeah, sometimes the fool is also related to spirituality, the inner child with imagination. That there's this sense of really seeing things that others don't, that are like maybe esoteric.
Yeah.
So April Fools feels like, it feels like it's more about tricksters than fools. So the trickster is a totally different person. They have similarities in the fool in that they're both jokers, they're both usually not the main characters in a story, but they both exist to challenge and question and point out ways of thinking that are outmoded, but the fool kind of travels the world without fear and without intention and direction and consciousness, whereas the trickster is usually hiding in fear and imparting wisdom. So yeah, again, if you do a Wikipedia search of the term trickster, only 13 of the characters are female compared to 97 who are male.
Wow. That's really annoying. So tell us who some of the female characters are in that archetype.
These ones are a bit more... I found it difficult to find ones in modern media about. Amy Elliott Dunn in Gone Girl.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, which I have read and I have also seen the film.
It's a great film.
Yes.
You see Ben Affleck's peen.
Do you actually don't remember that?
Oh my god. The shower scene. It's kind of to the side. It's like the peen version of a side boob.
For those who haven't seen the film or read the book, without wanting to spoiler it for you, I guess the first word that comes to mind to describe this character is manipulative. Like deeply, she constructs this narrative and she constructs this series of events, and she's the puppet master. She's completely pulling everyone's strings and controlling everything.
Absolutely. So it's, again, we get a bit more intention and a bit more planning and a bit more, like deliberate actions, as opposed to the fool who's just like, woo, 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 I'm having so much fun. There's a lot of like European fairies are like quite tricksterish in that, you know, Ireland has a huge history with fairies and the wee folk, and just things like you have to appease them or else they get revenge on you. And they get revenge by like stealing your shoes, by tricking you, basically. So this is where we see a lot more of the playing tricks. Another like ancient character that I really like is the Japanese kitsune, who's a kind of fox spirit who transforms into beautiful women to like seduce men. Seeley in The Color Purple is another one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good one.
A mask trickster would be like Deadpool.
Okay. Haven't seen it, but I believe you.
I have, and I get it. It's that kind of, it's that same kind of energy where like you're not sure if they're dumb or playing dumb to gain advantage over people. And there's like a relishment and comedy in getting the one up on other people. So I think the trickster's a lot more aware and embroiled in power dynamics, you know, whereas the fool's just off doing their own thing and having their own adventure. So they break the rules, sometimes maliciously, but then it's usually with positive effects. They can be cunning or foolish or both. So that's, again, I feel like the wise fool is kind of like the bridge between the two. This is interesting. The trickster usually has gender variability. They can change gender roles, or they go into same-sex practices. They shapeshift into different animals or different forms. They have a degree of like intellect or secret knowledge. They can be very deceptive, and they usually hold quite like deep things like duality, liminality, self-identity, and they can sometimes have a connection with, you know, the divine or the shadow, you know. So again, there's that spiritual energy. And this, you know, a lot of femme or femme type tricksters might have been cast differently in the past as spinsters, mad women, witches.
Cool.
Yeah. I think one of the most famous tricksters in history is Lilith.
Ah, yes.
So this is from a really good source I found. Sophia Latner, and she had an essay called Identifying and Mapping the Female Trickster. So Lilith in the Jewish mythology is believed to be the woman before Eve. So according to Jewish mythology, there was multiple women before Eve because God had to make the perfect mate for Adam. The first few women were not perfect enough. So God made Lilith from the dust, which was the same way Adam was made, whereas Eve is made from Adam's rib. So Lilith leaves the Garden of Eden because she refuses to be subjugated under Adam. She refuses to lie beneath him in sex, arguing she's his equal and not his subordinate. So,
love her.
Yeah, she's quite the feminist hero these days. There's a lot of really good contemporary reinterpretations of her, which is amazing. So she rebels against God's will to mate with Adam, or be the perfect woman for Adam. So she leaves the garden, and that's the kind of one element of the trickster is turning that whole thing on its head. Then there's this kind of like, her decision to go against all that results in this black and white kind of reversal. So by turning her role on being a mother or female or protector of babies, she's painted as becoming a threat to babies. So upon her departure from the garden, God sends 3 angels to tell her to return. And they said if she didn't return to Adam, 100 of her sons would die every day. And she refused, and she said she was created expressly to harm newborn infants, which is crazy. And
wow.
I think it's that kind of thing of like, with the trickster overlapping with the rebel, like, fine, you say I'm a baby killer, be a baby killer, I'll kill all the babies, you know? And there was this caveat that she said she wouldn't harm any infant who was wearing an amulet with the images or the names of the 3 angels on it. And then during the medieval period, amulets of that sort were really popular as a kind of thing to protect babies. So in the Bible, the serpent which deceived Eve is depicted as male, but in the Middle Ages, there were some depictions of it that it was female and it was believed to be Lilith. So that, again, we have the shape-shifting into an animal to trick Eve out of, you know, revenge, subversion, just cause. So she's seen as this evil figure who consorts with the devil and haunts men at night, which I think is fair. And I mean, it's a good hobby. So they depict her as the snake. Male artists then will depict her as the snake, basically. And that's what we need to remember about a lot of these mythologies and stuff, is they were written by men. And this is so interesting. The word lullaby actually originates from 2 Arabic words meaning beware of Lilith.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is very interesting.
Yeah. So there's this whole kind of thing of like, just like I said, that women who were tricksters maybe were repainted as something else. So it's kind of like, why in God's name would a woman not lie beneath her man and want to pop out babies? It must be something demonic. There must be unseen forces at play, and, it's otherwise inexplicable.
Right, it's that, in a very literal way, demonizing of women who don't toe the line for what is expected.
Yeah, which I think we still see today.
Oh yeah, 100%. It manifests in a slightly different way, but it's still there.
Maybe the Bible was the original Daily Mail. So that's kind of the history and lack of history for women behind some of those terms.
So, shall we dive into our female April Fool's Day con artist? Actually, just before we dive into that, what is your view on April Fool's Day as a thing, Grace?
It makes no sense to me. I don't know the history of the day, and I think it's kind of stupid.
That is very fair. I don't think it's true to say I'm just not a fan of it generally. I'm not a fan of the way that it's often used. It's like, I feel like it's often, people often play with it in a way that actually is really malicious and harmful. I never ever want to see another fake pregnancy or fake breakup or fake illness or injury or disaster or any of those things. What I enjoy is when people take it and just do something that is blatantly ridiculous, just for fun. So I've seen a couple of really good ones this year, and some kind of businesses and organisations do really put out ones that are genuinely really quite funny, and I enjoyed that side of it. I think the litmus test really has to be, is this joke likely to hurt or upset people in some way, even if unintentionally? And if it does, then maybe don't do it. But if it's clearly just playful and silly, then you know what, fine, have at it. I think some of them can be really funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know the history of it either, and I don't know why we make stuff up on the 1st of April. If anyone wants to educate us on the history of April Fool's Day, please have at it. Slide into our inbox. On that note, so who is the first con artist that you want to tell us about, Grace?
Well, I've been talking for a while, so I think you should tell us about your first con artist.
I have three con artists that I'm gonna talk about, and the first one is a woman named Bertha Hayman, who is also known as Big Bertha or the Confidence Queen. She was born in what was at the time Prussia and moved to the United States in the 1870s. She was married twice, the second time to a man named John Hayman. And her scheme involved conning men out of money by pretending to be a wealthy woman who was unable to access her fortune. So she stayed in all of these fancy hotels. She had a maid and a manservant. She used to brag about having lots of powerful and influential friends. And she engaged in what's known as confidence tricks. So essentially she got people to trust her, and that's how she got away with what she was doing. Someone described her confidence tricks as, quote, extraordinarily bold and ingenious, and they were covered by much ostentatious display. So she went all out with it. So she was quoted in the New York Times in 1883, and said that she was only interested in the act of getting money. She didn't care about having it. She didn't care about spending it. In fact, she actually claimed that she gave the bulk of her money to the poor.
Wow.
So it was just the act of getting it that's, I mean, obviously clearly if she was staying at these fancy hotels and having servants and things, she was spending some of it, but it seems as though the main thing she was interested in actually was just the thrill of getting it. And it seemed like she was mostly interested in tricking smart, intelligent men who should know better. There's this quote from her where she says, "The moment I discover a man's a fool, I let him drop. but I delight in getting into the confidence and pockets of men who think they can't be skinned. It ministers to my intellectual pride. Yeah, she was described by someone called Thomas F. Burns, who was a famous detective in New York City, as one of the smartest confidence women in America. And the New York City police considered her to be, quote, the boldest and most expert of the many female adventuresses who infest the country. And she managed to swindle several men out of a total of thousands of dollars, even while she was in prison.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's quite a story. So clearly someone who was just very, very good at getting people to trust her and getting people to like her, and making them believe this story that she was telling. And this connects a little bit to the last one that I'm going to talk about today, but we will come to that later. So who is your first con artist?
Well, my first one is someone who wasn't the trickster. Someone attempted to make a fool out of her. So Susanna Salter is someone that you might see a meme of going around a lot on Facebook. But in 1887, a group of men added this woman, Susanna Salter, to the mayoral ballot as a joke intended to humiliate her. And at that time, candidates did not have to be made public before election day. So it's kind of like on election day, she finds out, oh, I've been nominated, and it's this joke. But then she was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll run for office if I'm accepted. And she was active in the Women's Christian Temperance Union and Prohibition Party. So she had a big following, and she was allied with a national activist called Carrie Nation. Those groups abandoned their preferred candidate and voted for her instead. And additionally, the Republican Party chairman sent a delegation to her home and confirmed she'd serve. And then the Republicans decided to vote for her as well. So it helped her secure a 2/3 majority.
That is brilliant.
So, Susanna Salter went on to win over 60% of the vote and became America's first female mayor and one of the first women to serve in any political office in the United States.
That is incredible.
Yeah. And that was her.
That's awesome. I love it.
That's great. So it's really interesting, the thing of like the trickster making a fool out of someone. And I guess then she would be like the wise fool, because she's just like, all right, you want me to be mayor? I'll be mayor.
Right, totally turning it back on them. I love that.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
Who is that? Who's your next trickster?
My next trickster is a French woman named Thérèse Humbert. So she was born in Toulouse in the 1850s, and it seems as though when she was young, she got her first kind of ideas from her father, who was also a bit of a trickster, a bit of a con artist himself. He liked to ward off creditors by showing them a locked chest, which he claimed held legal documents that could prove his wealth. Don't know how that played out for him in the end, but anyway, that's what he did. So Thérèse pulled off her first scam when she married someone called Frédéric Humbert, who was actually her first cousin, which was very common for cousins to marry back then. They met while she was working as a laundry maid in his home, and she wooed him by telling him stories about this castle that she'd supposedly inherited from the wealthy lover of her dead mother. And the article that I took this from, I'm just gonna read this verbatim because it's brilliant. Though Frederic may have started out as a mark, he soon became a willing accomplice when Thérèse used this very fake castle, which she called the Château de Marcotte, as collateral for a very real bank loan, which allowed the Humberts to move into a real castle of their own.
Yes!
Yeah. But her big scam came in 1879. She was on a train and she discovered a man in the adjacent compartment having a heart attack. He was revived and he survived, and it turned out that he was this American millionaire called Robert Henry Crawford. And he said that he would be forever in her debt. And so then a couple of years later, she claimed to have received a letter naming her the sole beneficiary of Crawford's will. And it stated that his family fortune would remain in a sealed safe until Thérèse's younger sister Marie was old enough to marry one of Crawford's nephews. So she kept this document in lockbox in one of her homes, along with 3 other wills that each detailed some weirdly specific requirements, and also each of which left her an enormous fortune. So she told her bankers that if they could just lend her the small sum of 6 million francs, she would be able to cut Crawford's nephews out of the will, inherit 100 million francs, and pay them all back with considerable interest. And somehow they agreed to this.
Wow.
Yeah. So she had this incredible, like, luxurious life where she was making friends with all of these high up and influential people, including even presidents, prime ministers. She was known apparently for wearing enormous hats, one of which, quote, famously resembled a giant leech slurping away at her coiffed hair.
Oh my god, I love it. The symbolism. It's
brilliant.
The leech.
Right, it's so good. So this eventually all sort of started being questioned a little bit, as you can imagine. So this actually went to court, and Therese recruited her brothers to pretend to be Crawford nephews.
Oh, yes.
And this article that I got this from reads, in brackets, with horrible American accents, of course. The ruse collapsed in court. The lawyers saw straight through it. The Humberts ran off to Spain, and the state prosecutor seized the locked box that supposedly had all of these wills in it that left her tons and tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was opened very publicly in front of nearly 10,000 people, and inside they found an old newspaper, an Italian coin, and 1 trouser button. It's absolutely absurd, isn't it? So anyway, they were arrested. They were sentenced to 5 years solitary confinement with hard labour. Therese was released in 1908 when she was 52, and her husband was released the same year. The end of this story reads, the 2 promptly disappeared from history as if, like the inheritance, they had never existed in the first place.
I think, like you said earlier, the common thread with good pranks is that no one is harmed, and I think it's also, it's punching up as when there's a good prank, like, like, oh, a bank lost a load of money. No one's too upset about that.
It's absolutely, like, there's just so many different layers to it.
I want that leech hat. Any hat designer listeners, seriously.
I'm going to see if I can find a pic of the leech hat, bear with. Okay, I can't find a picture of it immediately, but I'm going to see if we can find a picture of it, and we'll put it on Instagram if we can find one.
My next one is Ursula Hamburger. So she was originally born Ursula Kuczynski. She was a well-educated German, newly married to an architect husband who didn't share her passion for building a new world. She was so bored of expatriate life among women she described as little lapdogs that she allowed a visitor to her home, Richard Scourge, to recruit her as a communist spy.
Oh, and wow.
She soon became his lover as well. And she was 6 months pregnant at the time. So, by being 6 months pregnant, her maternal appearance made her less suspicious. She had 3 different children with 3 different men and moved to Soviet Union, Switzerland, London, and rural Oxfordshire.
Ah!
Where Jess and I met.
Yes! Yay, Oxford.
She rose to the rank of colonel in the Red Army and was responsible for passing on scientific secrets that would enable Russia to make an atomic bomb. So, with the codename Sonia, she was also the handler of the physicist Klaus Fuchs, whom she went on long country walks with, and they would hold hands to look like trysting lovers. But throughout, she was also a wife to 2 husbands, tending to her children and baking scones. It was necessary to leave her 2-year-old son with his grandparents for several months at one point, because she was in Russia learning to blow up railway lines, and they were worried about the toddler picking up any Russian words which would incriminate them. But after that, she always took her children with her, preferring to put them in danger than be separated from them. And no one turned against her. Even when her name did come up, she escaped detection because MI5 couldn't believe a housewife could do all this.
Wow.
That's, like, amazing to me. Like, just taking that, you know, again, it just feels like, which is so much of my personality, that, like, you want me to play the adoring wife and mother? Fine, I'll do that. And there's, like, you know, that's, you know, she's using the suppression society puts on women as a protection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how did it all come out in the end, you know?
No, that's all I found on Wikipedia.
Okay. That is fascinating though. Yeah, she's totally playing into that idea of women as, I suppose, sweet and innocent and harmless in order to get away with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. Do you have another?
I do. I have one more. So my last one is actually a really recent story that a lot of people might remember because this was all over the news when it happened. My final story is Anna Sorokin, who was also known as Anna Delvey. So she was a Russian-born German citizen who moved to New York City and created this fictitious identity of Anna Delvey, where she was pretending that she was a wealthy German heiress. Essentially, she was so good at pretending to be, she was so good at building this fake identity, this narrative of herself, that she was able to just blend seamlessly into these very high, very sort of high up, you know, I suppose upper class, if you want to call it that, social circles in New York. She moved to New York. She told her friends and acquaintances that she had a €60 million trust fund, which was held in overseas banks and would cover the lifestyle that she was living, which included lavish hotel stays, and eating at award-winning restaurants, visiting spas, salons, all this kind of thing. She was known for living this very, very fancy lifestyle. But the story about how her family had acquired this money changed lots and lots of times. Sometimes she had a father who was a diplomat. Sometimes she said he was an oil executive. Sometimes she said he was a solar panel magnate. It just changed all of the time. And many people who knew her were told that she was trying to set up an art foundation that was funded by her family trust. And she was planning to lease a famous historical building in New York called the Church Missions House, and to use that as a multi-purpose kind of studio, event space. And she would get her friends and her travelling companions to pay huge amounts, often the entire bill, for trips that they took together. She claimed that she checked her wallet with her luggage, or that her card would get declined and then her friends would cover the costs. And people just didn't see the red flags in all of this because she would claim that she was having difficulty moving her assets from her overseas bank. And when people had to hound her to pay them back, she would just laugh it off as her being forgetful. So she got caught. In 2017, she was arrested on 6 charges of grand larceny for allegedly scamming wealthy New York City business acquaintances and hotels. According to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, she owed approximately $275,000 at that time.
Whoa.
Yeah. So initially she was facing charges of misdemeanor theft of services, which related to stays at a couple of hotels as well as a meal at a hotel in New York. But in December 2018, she appeared in New York City Criminal Court and rejected a plea deal. The plea deal would have had her released from jail and deported back to Germany in early 2019, so that would have been a very short prison sentence. But she went to trial, and then in April 2019, a jury found her guilty of second-degree larceny, theft of services, and 1 count of first-degree attempted grand larceny. She was found not guilty on other charges, including attempted grand larceny in the first degree for an attempted $22 million loan, and charge of theft of $60,000 for a Morocco trip. So, all of this. So she was convicted on all of these different charges, so it all sort of came to a head in the end. During the trial, the prosecutor said that she seemed to, quote, revel in the plight of her victims, and that she, quote, showed more concern for her attire than for the emotions of those she hurt.
Wow.
Her defence attorney pushed back against all of this and tried to humanise her by claiming that she'd been trying to just buy time to pay back all of the debt. and was trying to portray her as an entrepreneur, and even compared her to Frank Sinatra, claiming that they both created their own opportunities in New York. Yeah. So she was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in state prison, fined $24,000 in order to pay restitution of about $199,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She was released from prison on February 11th of this year, 2021. 2 days ago, it was reported on an article in Insider that she was in ICE custody, and it was unclear why that was happening now when she was released 6 weeks ago. And it was said when she was sentenced that she would be deported to Germany when she was released, but it's unclear if that is happening at this point or not. Yeah, so that is our contemporary scam con artist story.
God, I think I remember this.
Yeah, it was all over the news. There's a really interesting article in The Cut, actually, by Jessica Pressler, which goes into a lot of detail around kind of how she pulled it off, and includes interviews with some of the people that she scammed, including a woman who was working as a concierge at one of the hotels that she stayed at a lot. And we'll link it in the show notes, because it goes really deep into the sort of psychology of how she did it and how she got people to trust her. Yeah,
I can see how it would work with, very rich celebrities and that party lifestyle, that it's just, if you keep moving friends around enough and you're only seeing some people every 2 months or whatever, and no one's keeping track of the bills really, and no one's keeping track of who's paying what, it would be very easy to do it. But I don't know quite how they managed to do to do it with one-on-one in relationships or like that with quite normal people.
Yeah. Well, there's a really interesting quote in this article about this kind of high-flying social scene that's from someone who knew her, and she says, "Everyone is your best friend and you don't know a thing about anyone." So there we are. That is my third story. Do you have one more?
I have one more, and this is another war stealth spying thing, but it's kind of from the opposite end of the spectrum in between the mother whore. So we just had, the last one I told was Ursula Hamburger, who really embraced the mother role to hide her activities. This one is Josephine Baker, and she was probably the closest thing the jazz age had to a megastar. She was known as La Baker. She stayed in France most of her life. She very much adopted that country, but she was a worldwide celebrity. And her big act was dancing in a skirt made of banana leaves and very little else. So she initially publicly supported Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia. So therefore it was presumed she was one of them. So she took full advantage of that misconception. She would travel and have luggage full of music sheets, and the music sheets actually then had secret messages in invisible ink. And she was such a celebrity that, I love this image, that all the immigration officials would just be fawning over her and looking for her autograph and everything, that no one would ever look too closely at her luggage. Which is what I love. This is World War II, obviously. She stuck around in France and she didn't leave, even though there was a big war going on. So she also smuggled secret photos of German military installations out of enemy territory by pinning them to her underwear. And that was intelligence work that helped her rise to the rank of lieutenant in the Free French Air Force. And when the war was over, she received both the Croix de Guerre, which was the first for an American woman, and the Medal of the Resistance in 1946.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, this is an amazing story. So her manager, Pepito de Albertini, challenged a soldier to a duel in her honor. There was 2 men fought a duel over her. And one of them was a Hungarian cavalry captain. And apparently his ogling and attentions became too fervently gallant to be stomached by her manager, who was Count Pepito de Albertini. So he challenged him to a sword fighting duel.
Well then.
During which was in a cemetery, and she sat on one of the tombs watching them sword fight. And it lasted 10 minutes until one of them took a light blow to the shoulder, and at which point she intervened and forced the two men to set aside their differences.
Okay, guys, stop it now.
Just that image of the two of them fighting a sword fight, and she's just sitting on a tomb, like,
She's just chilling out, watching.
Cigarette and watching, like, yeah, go. I'm just like, yeah, that's the kind of trickster energy I can get into.
That's hilarious. Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a few sources that I use to get this info from. I guess you probably do too, so we'll link all of them in the show notes. That was really fun. We should do special episodes more often. I really enjoyed that.
We really should, and we're really going to try to get the next special episode actually released around the date of when it's relevant.
Yes. To be fair, we came up with this idea very late. We're taking suggestions for future special episodes.
Yeah.
So, yes.
We're on all the social medias. Women versus Everything on Instagram, and that's Women versus Everything vs Everything. Also on Gmail, and we have a Facebook page. And WV Everything Pod on Twitter.
Yes, and also you can give us money at patreon.com/women vs everything. We have some fun perks that you can access, and you can just help us to continue creating awesome feminist media for as little as $1 a month.
And we also now have a coffee account.
We do. Exciting.
If you don't want to have a Patreon thing, you can give us a once-off donation. And on that, we're WV Everything Pod. Same as our Twitter name.
And is that the coffee that's spelled KOFI?
buymeacoffee.com/WV Everything Pod.
Awesome. There are several platforms that allow you to do that, so just wanted to make sure we had the right one. Awesome. We will link that.
Why don't we set one up on all of them? We can have several.
We could do that.
I'm sure that's how it works.
Just use your platform of choice to send us money.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and if you join my mailing list on loveanddisgrace.co.uk, a physical address comes up there if you want to post us things. But yeah, you can also use the Gmail account if you find any funny things.
Yes.
Let us know what you thought of this format. Did you like the way it was kind of mini stories? Do you want us to do that more often? Did it suck? Did you like how we started off the show with random chit chat? Or do you think we should leave that? Yeah, just give us your feedback. We're really excited to hear what you think. I've got a hometown heroine.
Amazing. Go for it. Yes.
So the hometown heroine I want to highlight is Katrina Toomey, who is the driving force behind Cork Penny Dinners, which operates on a purely voluntary basis. Cork Penny Dinners is a warm, dry place in the heart of the city with a welcoming atmosphere. The premises is open to everyone 7 days a week, all year round. No questions asked, no judgments made. Their services are free of charge for everyone that need them. And they currently provide up to 2,000 freshly made meals per week. There's been a huge increase in homelessness and mental health issues that are affecting so many people worldwide. But yeah, this is my hometown, Cork City. So yeah, Katrina Toomey is amazing. She became involved in the charity some years ago through her father, Tom Lynch, and since then she's dedicated to easing other people's suffering. Her background is as a psychotherapist, attests to this, and she's won the Cork Person of the Month award, and her teenage daughter Alicia is also following in her footsteps. She received the prestigious Gordy Youth Award for her ongoing charity work. So Katrina says of herself, "My strong points are many, my weak points even more. However, myself and the volunteers do a magnificent job every day of the year we serve." And yeah, so it's quite a popular charity for people to fundraise money for, and everyone I know that has used their business in some form to collect donations or money for, the thing they always comment about the most is when they're dropping it off, Katrina comes to the door and personally thanks them. Yeah, which is really lovely.
I love her. Amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. So send us in your hometown heroines. We're going to give it a few more episodes, but we'll consider dropping it after that if there's not that much interaction.
I do have one for the next episode that a listener has told me about. So we have at least one more.
Okay.
But yes, we are looking for suggestions for that. So please tell us your awesome women doing awesome feminist things in your hometown.
Yeah, and it can be somebody still alive today. It can be someone who has passed on, but as long as it's relevant to the general region or province where you live, then we want to hear about it. Jess, what's your basic bitch gratitude list?
Oh God, I should think about this, and I never do, and I really should. Actually, this week is easy. I am grateful for the fact that I finally got to see my parents this week when lockdown was eased a little bit in the UK, and we're now allowed to meet up to 6 people outside. So we met and we went for a walk and we had a picnic, and it was lovely and it was really sunny, and it just felt like a little bit of normality, which God knows we all desperately need right now. So I'm very thankful for that. I am also thankful for long weekends. It is Easter weekend, woohoo! I did not take yesterday off work, but I am taking Monday off work. So 3-day weekend, always a good thing. What about you?
Jess, are you grateful that you live in a country that is not racist?
Yes, the UK this week has declared itself not racist, which is not really necessarily a thing that is entirely accurate, but
no,
there we are.
I was just reading, we're of course referring to the investigation into institutional racism led by Tony Sewell, and it turns out when a country orders an investigation into itself by itself, it finds that there are no problems.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And big shout out to Black historian and author S.I. Martin, who was quoted in this commission, but he's never actually taken part in it. Yeah, so he's quite angry, rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
And let's keep talking about it and fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
I am also grateful for Easter holidays, sleeping, napping, binging shows, and I'm also grateful for the woods, great weather, spring, unfurling ferns. Oh, and I found loads of teeth. I'm really grateful for that, I guess.
What?
Yeah, in the woods near my house. I collect bones. So I go for a walk, and every so often you find a bone, or you find some remains of animals, obviously. And I found a load of animal skulls.
Huh.
And I've collected all the teeth. And I'm really excited about it. And I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. Jewelry or hexing my exes. I don't know.
And next time we will be back with another regular episode. I think it's my turn to pick the person. I'm working on that. And let us know what you thought of this one. Do we have a good sign-off this week? I kind of want to go with hate scams, love women, but actually some of these scams were really funny, so... Oh, got it. Love women and scam the patriarchy.
Woo!
Okay, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
And I now want Scam the Patriarchy on a t-shirt.
That is really good. Scam the patriarchy.
Thanks, I thought so. Oh god, that was fun.